Hey y'all, this is Brita for the Happier Attorney, the channel where we talk about flat fees and mindset and how you can be an attorney and have a life worth living. So today it is a cold and wintry day, hence the sweater, in Central Texas. And this is a perfect time of year to get some clarity on the importance of flat fees. Now, unless you are 100% happy with how you are billing, and if so, you can just, end the video and go on your merry way. But unless you are 100% happy, then learning flat fees really needs to be one of, if not your highest priority professionally. And I'm going to show you why. And I understand that we're all busy and we all have demands on our resources. Demands on our money, demands on our time, and it's very difficult to be able to get clarity on what truly is important and what needs to be put first. And it might sound self-serving from when I teach flat fees to say learning flat fees really has to be your top priority, but hear me out. And this was brought on, I had a potential client and who was really interested and came back with, flat fees aren't making the cut this year. I'll look at it next year. And that reminded me of somebody else that had wanted to learn flat fees or had been interested and had a mid-sized firm, a mid-sized practice, and I knew her numbers and I knew what her numbers would be with flat fees because I had practiced in the same area that she practiced, in the same geographical location. And I knew what she could charge because I knew what I charged. And this was 5 years ago. And I did some math. We'll go through some math in a bit. I did the math, and based on conservative numbers, based on the size of her firm, she is earning but not collecting. She is losing money that she could have been earning with flat fees by the tune of $10 million a year. I'm going to repeat that. $10 million a year. In the 5 years that she's been thinking about flat fees, that's $50 million. Now, granted, she has a mid-sized firm, okay? This isn't a solo, this isn't a one or two attorney practice. I don't care. That's a heck of a lot of money. There is a real price to pay for doinking around here, for thinking about it, for having to learn a little bit more, for exploring a little bit more, for saying, I'll learn it later. I'll look into it later. All of these other things are more important. Really? Please tell me any of the things in the last 5 years, in the last year, in the last 6 months that came close to the equivalent of $10 million. Let's say you don't have a 10 attorney firm. Okay, bring that down to $1 million. Please tell me what in the last year was so important that it made you $1 million. Or it cost you $1 million. I'll wait. I'm not trying to be ugly here. These are real numbers, and we'll go through them in a bit, but these are real numbers. But we don't think of it like that. So I will talk to attorneys all of the time who, let's say, aren't billing, doing the work. So they're still using hourly. They're doing the work, but they're not tracking their time. They're not sending bills out. They're not collecting. Even if their collection rate is great at 90%, which 90% is really good for attorneys, that's still 10% that you're just bye-bye. kind of think of it as just a cost of doing business. It's not a cost of doing business. I can tell you, I don't have any accounts receivable, and haven't since the day I started using flat fees. Not the day, I mean, there was still follow-up, old clients, but with flat fees, you don't have accounts receivable. Even if that was just the 10%, is that not important enough? Okay, so we'll go through some of the money and the numbers later on. But let's talk about what flat fees, we're going to take this one step at a time. I used to think that time was our greatest resource. I no longer think that. I think that energy is our greatest resource. Absolutely. You can have all of the time in the world, but if you don't have the energy, it doesn't matter. Think back to the last time that you were sick, when you had a cold or the flu, when you just had zero energy. There was just nothing left in your tank. It didn't matter how much time somebody gave you. You're just dragging if you're able to do it at all. Okay? Energy absolutely is our greatest resource. You have energy, you're pumped, you're focused, you get in the flow, you get in the zone, whatever you want to call it, and you become unstoppable. Unstoppable. When you're able to focus and really concentrate your energy and focus it on one task, woo! How do I know you have that capability? Well, you're a licensed attorney. I know that you took the bar. That took focus. That took focusing your energy, concentrating your energy, and look at what you were able to do. How do flat fees help with your energy? Okay. I'm going to preface all of this all of the time with using them properly, using them properly, using them properly. When you use flat fees properly, there are some immediate energy vampires that go away. Number one, you're not tracking your time. Now, there's some exceptions to that, but just for today's purposes, just go with me on this. You're not tracking your time. Our brain is not meant to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Oh, I did that task. Oh, let me go and switch programs and do, even if you're tracking your time contemporaneously. Okay, let me go in and write down my description, how much time. And even if you have fancy software that's supposed to do that for you, your brain is still ticking back and forth. Our brain is not meant to do that. It's a huge energy suck. It breaks your focus. And that's for the people who are tracking their time contemporaneously. Most of y'all are not. Most of you all are not at all. So what that means is that your brain is trying to keep track of that. Oh yeah, I gotta go back and do my time. I gotta write my time. I don't care who you are. I don't care what kind of memory you think you have. There is no way that you are tracking that accurately in any way. You are not remembering that accurately in any way. Even half an hour later, much less at the end of the day, much less trying to recreate time entries a week later. I've even heard of people going back and looking at what has been filed in cases to try and recreate their time. That, to me, I think that's just unethical, quite frankly, because you're just making crap up at that point. You have no idea how long you spent on that. You're just making it up. When we guess, we underestimate. Period. And we know, we don't really know, so then we underestimate even more. It's kind of like we just got done with the holidays. A lot of us ate a whole lot of crap, okay? It's kind of like when you're trying to track what you're eating. When you track it contemporaneously, you get to the afternoon and you're like, ooh, okay. Ooh, I gotta dial that back a little bit. If you try and recreate it the next day, you're gonna miss stuff, or you're gonna underestimate, or you're gonna find that, oh, I just ate 2,500 calories. Whoops. Okay, same with tracking your time, and most of you aren't. Study after study shows that, okay? But you know you're supposed to be. So it's like this haunting in your head, track your time, go back, do a time entry. Oh, you were supposed to do that time entry, okay? It haunts you, which is a huge energy vampire. It's sucking focus away because you have to keep track of it, okay? That's one example. Then with hourly, we have the relationship issues that hourly billing causes with our clients. There's schmutz there. Even if we don't talk about it with them, even if we don't like to acknowledge it, you're fooling yourself if you think that it's not. Even if there's not, quote, an issue, it's still affecting the relationship. And you know it, and your client knows it. Because they're concerned about every bill that they get every month. Because they have no idea how much it's going to be. So they're concerned about contacting you. They're concerned about you doing extra work or more work. Just like my friend Tucker said on one of these videos. And he knows better. He said, when an attorney is billing me by the hour, even though I know it's not true, it feels like they're screwing me. I can tell you, I have one vendor who is an incredible vendor. I love her work. And she still charges by the hour. And I can tell you, it just grates on me. It grates on me as a client. Because I don't know what quote this is going to cost. I don't know if I can afford what I even say I want. And then there's a big bill, and it puts schmutz in the relationship. Even when I have a good relationship with her, I would not use another vendor. We're going on 15 years together. But it still puts schmutz in there. And that's on a good day. Then what happens with your clients when it's not a good day? When they're getting behind in a bill. That feeling is horrible when you're like, And then somebody's coming to you saying, hey, you need to get on top of Bob because he's getting behind in the bill. And then you have to call Bob and, hey, Bob, we're getting behind in the bill. Bob's probably doing the best he can. Bob knows he's getting behind on the bill. It puts much, then you become your client's creditor. That's not the position that you want to be in. And you are showing up differently. I don't care who you are as an attorney, you're going to show up differently. It's human nature. And then what happens when you need to do more work for Bob and he still owes you? Now you're in a pickle. I mean, ethically, you need to do it unless it's, some totally new thing, but he still owes you. So one of you is going to end up with a short end of the stick here. Either, you do it and then the bill goes up and he doesn't pay and then you did it for free. We'll get to do it for free because you didn't do it for free. You actually paid to do it. Or then he's going to get even further behind. He's going to, I owe him, 1,000 and then next week he's going to owe you 4,000. He's never, it's never going to feel like he's going to win. That puts ick in the relationship. It really does. I remember this was when I was still using hourly. I had a case where my client had always been really nice, polite, never had a problem with him. He had made a couple comments about the bill. It was a high conflict situation that took a lot of skill, and I had to do things fast. There was a temperamental person on the other side that, like, you had to know when to strike, and when it was time to strike, I had to strike. And I remember we were at a court hearing, and it took a lot to get there. And somehow, I don't even remember the facts, I don't even remember how, but somehow I had gotten the other side to agree to something big, huge, huge. And she could have changed her mind any second. Like, I needed to get my client's signature on that order, and I needed to get a judge's signature on that order now, before she changed her mind. And so I thought that the emergent nature was evident to my client. And I'm like, okay, I need you to read this, sign it. Ah! And he snapped at me. And he snapped at me. He said, well, can I at least read it? For all the money I've paid you, I should at least be able to read it. And I think I would have handled it differently today. I said something, well, I think I've earned every penny that you have paid me. And we need to get a judge's signature on this right now, or else we're going for another battle that you might lose. So, okay. And he signed it. That's the schmutz I'm talking about. Clearly, there had been an undercurrent with him that he was resentful. I know him well enough to know that at the end of the day, he valued my services, but there was still that undercurrent. You don't have that with flat fees. You don't have it, because they knew the price up front, and they either thought that what they were getting exceeded that price, the value of what they were getting exceeded that price, or they wouldn't have hired you. There's also something psychological about paying it upfront, even if it appears to be higher, and being done with it. And then we can just get on with the job. When they get a bill every single month, even if at the beginning they thought you were all of that and a bag of chips, when they get a bill every single month, especially when month 4 doesn't go well, it creates that tension there. That is a huge energy vampire. Especially when it feels like you're playing tug of war with your client. This job is hard enough. We need to all be on the same team all of the time. And when you bring in hourly billing with your client, whether it's real or perceived, there's going to be schmutz there. It's almost inevitable. Okay? Again, a huge drain on energy when there's very little energy to begin with. Okay? Then there's with your staff. I interviewed an associate in a mid-sized firm recently, and he's in charge of the associates. And he was very candid that the absolute biggest problem with his staff, with associates, is that they hate hourly billing. You don't think that feeling is a huge energy vampire? Let's get this straight. Being a lawyer is a hard job. And the biggest problem they had as an attorney was their hatred, and that was his word, of the billing system that you're using. Why? That alone, if you have associates, that alone should be enough to get you over to flat fees. Because if you do not understand the value and the cost of your associates and employees and the value to having them happy versus the cost of them not being happy, if you do not understand how big of a deal that actually is and how that relates to turnover and your costs and your client happiness and your client satisfaction, I say this with respect, maybe you shouldn't have associates, because it's really that big of a deal. It truly is. The morale in an office, the energy is contagious. We've all been in that work situation where there was that one person who was the complainer, who was the pot stirrer. Holy cow. Energy is contagious. You get some employees that hate billing, which who doesn't? That energy goes. And now you have a morale problem. And now you have a turnover problem. And you're like, I don't understand. Much less when they're saying we hate billing by the hour. And what is that telling them? They're telling you we hate billing by the hour. That's our number one problem. And you're turning around and showing them that you don't care about that because you're going to keep billing by the hour. It's not a priority. Holy cow. What is that telling them about how you value them and their happiness? You don't think that's going to be an issue? The other thing that using flat fees properly does for the actual practitioner is that you are far more focused. You're not tracking your time. You're not sending statements out. You're not worrying about who owes you what because nobody owes you what. You're able to just come in and do the job and get out. You are more focused. What do you think that does to your work product? Goes up. The quality of your work goes up. What do you think that does for client satisfaction? It goes up. What do you think client satisfaction does for client referrals and reviews? They go up. Now we have this kind of upward spiral effect. What does that do for your energy? When you wake up in the morning and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to work and I'm just going to pound it out, versus oh my gosh, and I have to deal with this unhappy client and I have to call this client who owes the firm money and deal with this client who's pissed off. You show up differently. You show up jazzed. You show up excited. You show up ready to go and being enthused about your job, which again is contagious, which again gets you more referrals and happier clients. How do I know? I've been there, friends. I remember, again, well before flat fees, I was doing marketing and I was networking and meeting with financial planners. And I will never forget this. It was at a particularly unhappy time period in my life. And I thought I was hiding it well. We think we hide it well. We're not. You're not hiding anything. You're not hiding anything. And I'll never forget, I went out to lunch with two financial planners. It was a mother and daughter team. And, I'm going through all of the wonderful things about the firm and, what we do for our clients and, trying to get them to send us business, and they were bigwigs in town. And I'll never forget, she looks at me and she says, "We only send clients to people who love what they do." What was I supposed to say? She had totally called me out. It's not like I could sit there, and I knew enough, I was smart enough at the time to not make it 10 times worse by saying, "Oh, I love my job. What are you talking about?" She had seen through me and she called me out on it. I wasn't happy. You're not hiding it. So it's just something to consider when you start simplifying, when you start using flat fees and you start simplifying, and you get rid of so many of these energy vampires and you become more focused, that alone is going to move the needle and energize you like you have no idea. You have no idea. And then you can do some of the other things that you want to do, okay? That's just the energy side of flat fees, which is so important. Probably the most important, again, most important resource that you have, that we have, that I have. That alone is why flat fees have to be such a huge priority if you are interested in flat fees. Because as it is now, you've got, if your practice was a boat in the water, you've got holes all through it. You're leaking all over the place. And you're trying to paddle. It's like if anyone's tried to ride a bike with a tire that is not full of air. It's a miserable experience. You're working so hard for going next to nowhere. So I am asking you to consider stopping, getting off the bike and putting air in the tires. Stopping the leak, fixing the hole. And then you can go, and you can go fast, and you can go anywhere you want to go. But it has to be a priority. So that's what we're doing in these first few weeks in January. So the next video, I am going to go through time, how flat fees save you time, how they create time, and our relationship with time as attorneys. So thanks for watching. And if you want more information on learning flat fees, go to happierattorney.com, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care, y'all.